Welcome to Following on India with Saurabh, Somani and Jarrod Kimber here. We are going to be talking about, well, let's just start with this. It's simple. We don't need to muck around. Can India win without Bumrah?
Well, they did at GABA 2021, didn't they?
Oh, then easy. Let's do it again.
I mean, it seems India have found the formula for winning in Australia, no? Just have a couple of first choice players unavailable and poof, you're going to win the test. I know Bumrah is just one player, but he counts as two for what he has done, maybe even three. So yeah, India are going to win, but if I was putting my money, I'd put it on Australia.
What can India defend without Bumrah?
See, without Bumrah, I think they'll feel like they need some 220, 225 minimum to feel like they have a chance. I know Siraj, Prasidh and even Nitish, stepped up really well in the post-lunch session today because without Bumrah. But you sort of feel like that's not a repeatable thing. With Bumrah, you feel it is repeatable. He will get you those breakthroughs. He will. So if that repeats, it will be another GABA 2021 sort of, not exactly repeat, but yeah, maybe sequel. If they win without Bumrah, defending less than 220.
All right, here's my final question. What is actually wrong with Bumrah?
No, so in this case, we call for transparency a lot, but in this case, I would actually support a lack of transparency. I wouldn't want any information about anything Bumrah is carrying to leak out of that dressing room, at least until the test is done, which it will be done tomorrow in all probability. So after that, we can know exactly what had happened, why he had gone, or whether he had gone. I don't know if you get it on your feed, but on the Indian feed, there is an ad in between that comes there, where Bumrah is advertising American pistachios. So Karthik Krishnaswamy on Twitter asked, how do we know Bumrah hasn't just gone to get a bag of those? So maybe he has gone to get that, what I don't know. But in this case, I would say they should protect that information, not let Australia get even a whiff of what was wrong.
It's weird. They're probably the only cricket board in the world that would do it, though. Every other cricket board in the world now would be... So, I mean, you're saying it from a tactical advantage point of view, which I'm more than fair with. It feels like the BCCI just don't care to tell anyone.
Oh, yeah. Like, no, they are doing it because they just do it, not because of tactical advantage.
Like Bumrah went off, we all saw him. We saw 28 shots of the Kia motor car, sponsors of the Oval. So well done to Kia. Kia got more advertising today in cricket than they have with the Oval because we just kept going back to him in that same car over and over again going. Before the BCCI even said he's gone to get scans. It's like, we know he's gone to get scans, dude. We just seen the thing like over and over again. Like, my worry is that he was moving really, really well. And it looked like to me it was a stress fracture scan, right? Only because there wasn't anything physically wrong with him. And that's what generally happens with stress fractures, right? Like, he got in the car fight and all those normal things. Side strain is the other one, but I don't think you'd do a scan for a side strain. So they're the two most obvious ones to me because nothing was strapped up. Right, there was no ice on anything.
I did hear on the broadcast that it is potentially a back issue, and he has just had surgery on his back. What was it, last year? I guess. No, I mean, now we're in 225. So in 2023, I think he had no, not even 23. Maybe even a bit earlier than that. So that's what I heard, but we don't know at all. And whether it was minor, major, what shape. I mean, it's a minor miracle, though, that it has taken until what is probably the penultimate day of this 5-test series for Bumrah to have even a hint of a breakdown, The kind of bowling workload he has shouldered, not just in terms of overs, but in always being the guy. He has to be the guy. He has to be at his most intense. He has to be at his best. His mind has to be at its sharpest throughout. So it's a little remarkable that only now is there a hint of a breakdown or even a major breakdown. I don't know what it is.
And it's worth saying that, Mitchell Starc also looks broken down.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so Mitchell Starc has a side strain. It just happens to be on the other side of his body, so it's not causing... it's not causing him massive issues with his bowling. But certainly he's not as accurate in this test as he has been in the others. Like he doesn't quite look as on it. His first over was a truly remarkable moment. I mean, it really was. I was on our Discord channel and I was basically saying they have to be ruthless with Stark. Like if the first couple of balls don't work, he has to be taken out, and there's no reason for him to bowl more than 2 overs. Australia just went with him for 3 overs, and it's like Boland is going to be the guy on this wicket that is going to be absolutely unplayable. And Australia almost forgot about Boland for a little while, and it's like just bring him on. And from the moment he bowled, it was a completely different match.
It just was, no, and maybe India should be a little thankful that Australia forgot about him, because I can assure you none of the Indian fans forgot about Boland. Everyone was waiting for when Boland will come, and I think he is just such a monster of a bowler. I don't know. I mean, obviously it's down to high skill, but how much of it is also because he has got only, I guess, favorable conditions to bowl. He's never, he doesn't play outside Australia. He knows the pitches in Australia well, I'm assuming, and he has the perfect lengths for those pitches. He has the perfect amount of movement for those pitches. And if the 3 major quicks are fit, then the only time he would play is when it is an out and out seaming pitch, right? So which is favorable conditions anyway. So
he does out bowl the other guys though. As well.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I think he's averaging 18 or whatever it is, maybe a little bit lower after today. In the same test, I think Cummins averages 24 and Stark is at 26.
Which is why I'm wondering, why isn't he part of those 3 actually? Why isn't Stark or someone sitting out?
Well, I think the problem that Australia has, and I don't think they're completely wrong with this, is that if you take Stark out, you have more of a samey attack. All right, so straight away it's 3 right-arm seamers, and they're basically 3 right-arm seamers who are accurate bowlers. You still have Cummins to bowl the short balls. You don't really have anyone for reverse swing, and you don't have anyone who's a left-hander who provides a variation, right? So I think that's probably the issue that they have. But I'm not sure if any of that would matter on the vast majority of the wickets they would play on, because this year, I think Josh Hazlewood's average was like 13. Oh, sorry, last year now. His bowling average was like 13. So just match him up with Boland and take Cummins back to first change, and just Cummins maybe only needs to bowl like a spell a game.
yeah, that's what. But I mean, it's a insane luxury of riches to have, right? If you're debating whether to leave out Mitchell Stark or Scott Boland from your first choice 11, or if you want to prepare like out and out seamers, to leave out Nathan Lyon, which is also a call that, I mean, no other team in the world I can think of is in a position to leave out any of these 3 from a first choice 11, including India. If India had a Mitchell Stark or a Scott Boland or a Nathan Lyon available, they would be playing. So would South Africa, who are the other test team that are doing well right now. Any of these guys would be playing. So it's a real luxury for Australia, and given that, it's actually maybe creditable that India still have somewhat of a sniff of making it 2-2. It just shows what Bumrah has done.
It is remarkable. Here we are. This is probably the last in-game podcast we will do of this series. I can't imagine this match is going into a 4th day.
Yeah.
And Indian fans have given this series up about 25 times. According to Bharat Sundaresan's article, the Indian team has given this up. Rohit didn't play in the last game. All these sorts of things are going on. And yet, if they get a lead of 170 and Bumrah can bowl, there's still a chance of being 2-all at everything else. It's such a weird series from that point of view of the more negative you are about India, the more they find a way to hang in, make a sniff back. They've played weirdly outside of being ahead of the actual series. Or even if you think about it in Perth, they were behind in the first innings, as in when they were bowled out, and they scraped their way back in front. But other than that, for the whole rest of the series, they've been playing like a team that is the underdogs, like the team that is behind. But they just keep clawing their way back into these games.
And not just that, they've had moments in each of the tests that they've been behind where they looked like if they, if certain things go in a certain way, they would be ahead, and not some outlandish things. Like you just need the batsman
Yep.
maybe to see out one spell, or you need the bowlers to get their lengths right for that one evening spell, like in Adelaide when that evening spell at night when even Bumrah took some time to find his length. That turned out to be so crucial. If Australia would have been 40 for 3 at that time, then who knows how it would have panned out. So it's remarkable, like you said, and I think it is largely down to just that one guy. There was another nice little quip that scans on Jasprit Bumrah's back showed that he has been carrying India all through. So
Well, obviously, we talked about Bumrah and we talked about Boland. The other person to talk about today is Rishabh Pant.
oh yeah,
Right.
oh yeah,
And it's so fascinating. So in Melbourne, in the first innings, he plays the falling down ramp shot when they've got a fine leg out and a third man out. And you're just like, it was the end of Boland's spell, probably. He looked like he was batting fine. It didn't really make any sense to us. But it is the way he plays. In the second innings, he's blocking out the draw or even putting India into a potential chance of going for a sneaky win. He gets a half tracker from Nathan Head and tries to hit it for 6 and gets caught out on the boundary. Sunil Gavaskar obviously very upset with the first one. In the second one, he was like one of 2 batters to actually bat well, so it was harder to get involved all that much. And then we get to this test, and the first innings, he's hit 11, 12 times on the glove, on the hip, on the other hip, on the unmentionables, on the forearm,
bicep,
on the shoulder, on the face, just hit everywhere, right?
yeah.
But it was a wicket where he just tried to attack. And he played two low low strike rate innings in a row, right? From the second innings of Melbourne into Sydney. And it was like, has Gautam Gambhir put the muzzle on him, right? Like, has he just decided, no, he's going to play the way I want him to play? And then today, I think it made sense. We saw Jaiswal trying to attack. Shubman Gill was out charging down the wicket as well. KRL wouldn't usually play that shot. There was lots of attacking shots being played. But this is why you don't want to muzzle Rishabh Pant, and you want him to play the way he does. Because once he went going, Australia completely panicked while he was out there.
Yeah. I think that's what he does, right? Like you just thought that this was the final chance for Pant to have a Pant-like innings, and he just took it. Pant is like cricket's version of the uncertainty principle. You can either know how much he's going to score or how he's going to score. You can't know both. But I was actually a little bit surprised. I was not surprised that India came out initially attacking, but I was a little bit surprised that they carried on. What did you make of that? Was it just that they thought this is a pitch where a ball with your name will come on it, or was there a greater method to it?
I just think if this pitch changed from day 1 to day 2, right? And it was weird. The commentators yesterday kept saying it was going to flatten out, and I was sitting there going, "Is it?" Like we talked about it yesterday on the show. I was like, "I don't think this pitch is going to flatten out." Yeah. I thought the opposite. I thought it would get tougher, and what it did was it changed. And I had heaps of Indian fans this morning telling me, "Oh, it's changed. It's good for batting now." And I was like, "It is not good for batting." What has happened is yesterday it was slow and seaming a long way. Today, it's faster, not seeming as much, but is more up and down in its bounce. And so there was a period where Smith and Webster, who made 50, in his debut and took his first wicket today, there was a period about an hour where they were making runs, right? And you look at it and you go, oh, well, the pitch is even out. And it's like, no, they're still playing and missing, and the ball's still doing lots. But the difference is it was coming onto the bat. And I think India looked at that and went, okay, because the ball is coming onto the bat, it means that we can play shots. And the other issue today was, I thought today you're more likely to go out, right? But you probably weren't going to have as many unplayable balls the day before. The unplayable balls the day before were going to hit you in the body or go naturally past your bat. You weren't going to hit them. So I think looking at what Webster did and Smith did, India went, okay, our best chance is to take it on. Because they were like playing backward drive to stop on. And I was like, guys, what are we doing here? This is just, you might as well just register yourself for second flip, right? Like beforehand. But I get the idea. And if you look at it, when Stark was bowling, they put a lot of pressure on Stark. They put a lot of pressure on Webster at times as well, and then Rishabh Pant came in and everything else. That's kind of where they've got all their runs, is when they've been attacking. So I don't have an issue with that. It's such a tough wicket to bat on. I think you've got to be in a position to say ball is doing something, and good luck to everyone.
Yeah, I did think though that they might recalibrate a little when the third wicket fell. Basically, Kohli for the eighth time outside, nicking outside off. I thought they might recalibrate a bit, but obviously that didn't happen. Gill then charged out, and then I thought they might, but then that meant Pant was at the crease, so then that changed everything, and they just kept going. They After Pant, I guess they tried to sort of bat time a little and play in a more traditional manner. It didn't get them too many runs, and it did lead to Nitish Reddy being out when he was trying to attack. Actually, so that I think India will feel like they've lost one wicket too many. For given the approach, given the bowling attack, given the seaming conditions, it's sort of par to maybe lose 5 wickets. They would have loved it if they had lost only 4. But 6, I think, is just one too many, which is why I think Australia is still ahead despite everything. How much do you think they can defend, though, India, with Bumrah and without?
With Bumrah, I think they could defend 150.
Okay.
To defend 150, especially on the wicket as it is now, I think you're probably going to get 8 runs through buys. Because the ball's going to fly over the wicketkeeper's head a couple of times. I mean, there was the one from Webster where he played a drive and the ball almost went over Pant's head. And I was like, and that was at the point everyone was telling me the wicket was flat. And I was like, there hasn't been a wicket for a little while. The wicket is not flat. These are two separate things, everyone.
Yeah.
I think 150 is possible. The issue is the scoring rate, as Pant showed and Jaiswal showed. Once you sort of, once you start to swing, you can actually hit a lot of boundaries in a row. And so 150 is a bit of an issue with that sort of score. But there's no reason if Bumrah can bowl and bowls at his best, then anywhere between 150 and 190 is very defendable, right? I truly believe that. We're looking at India probably making between 160 and 180 again, right? And so if the wicket gets any worse, well then good luck chasing 180. We haven't talked much about Prashid Krishna and Nitish Reddy bowled some very good spells. And that's how we knew Scott Boland was going to be unplayable, because they were unplayable, right? We understood that. So I just can't see how tomorrow, when you're in a situation like that, where if the wicket gets any worse and everything else, we're suddenly going to be thinking to ourselves that there is, it's going to be an easy chase. The issue is, if you look at this entire game, outside of the first innings, which I think now is a complete outlier, but the 2 innings that we saw today, you can get on a bit of a roll. And whether that affects the bowling team is, I think, the most important thing from here on in.
I think it would, right? It's so different when you get 16 runs off an over in the third innings versus you get 16 runs off an over in the fourth innings when you're chasing 150 or even 180. It's just it's such a different match situation. But how many do you think they can defend without Bumrah?
I still think they can defend a low total without Bumrah if the wicket continues to do what it's doing at the moment. But everyone else has to be perfect, right? And they've only got 3 other seamers.
And Washington Sundar needs to do the job he was picked for, because he's clearly a specialist number 8 test batsman, because he's not bowled at all. So he's been picked for his batting at number 8. So he needs to get a 50 to justify his inclusion.
Yeah. No, so I think, I still think they could defend 180 without Bumrah. Bumrah only took 2 wickets in the first innings and didn't bowl after lunch at all, right? And Australia made 180.
He bowled 1 over. His speed was actually in the low 120s, in the 120s. And the highest was 130.4 or something. So you felt like, is that, is there something off?
Yeah, he looked a little flat when he came on, didn't he? But, so from that perspective, I don't think India's going to feel comfortable with anything under 220, right? If Bumrah can't bowl. 220 is not impossible from here. And it's one of those weird ones, because if the wicket is still doing all sorts of things and they can only put on another 40 runs, right? Then 180 is very defendable even without Bumrah.
Because the
If
wicket
the
is
wicket
doing all
flattens
sorts.
down a little bit and Australia still managed to get the wickets, then 180 is nowhere near enough. So it's one of those. It's a bit like the first innings where India were batting and you're like the tail was trying to slog but struggling to slog at times, right? And you're like, it might have been better if India had bowled at that time. Everything we now know about the wicket is I didn't think they should bowl at this time, but I could understand why people were making that call. Everything we now know about the wicket was like, no, just get as many runs as you can. Is absolutely fine. But yeah, so it's a very, very interesting one from that perspective. But yeah, so the market still has Australia as heavy favourites. I
Yeah.
wonder what happens if India can put on 40 more runs, even if it's just
They
40 more
need.
runs to be bowled out. And if they make 40 more runs as well, the other thing I would add here, Saurabh, is very big chance of a tie.
Wow. Oh, yeah. We've not had a tie all series.
Just saying, very big chance of a tie.
But they'll need maybe Bumrah the batsman also if they want to add some more runs. He's actually, I was just looking at the tallies. I don't know if that has changed now after the thing, but he was out of 17 batsmen that India have used, he's ninth. So he's below 8 but also above 8. He's bang in the middle in runs tally. And obviously he's the highest wicket taker by far. So he's having a very all-rounder series. He's actually Garfield Sobers, not Bo Webster.
I thought on this wicket, the way he batted in the first innings, he would have been quite handy.
Yeah.
I could have seen today India sending in Siraj Bumrah wasn't at the ground, but Siraj or Bumrah and just saying to them, look, just go for it. It probably less likely that Bumrah would have sent himself in to do it, but you never know. Sometimes bowling captains do stuff like that. Gut feeling, who wins this game at the moment?
Australia.
Easily or close?
I'd have to say close. Because easily just seems like it would be anti everything that has happened in this series. So I'd have to say close. So it'll be like a 3-1 series win, but a closely fought 3-1 series win for Australia.
There's a thing in the NBA for the playoffs where in a 7-match series, if you lose 4-1, they call it a gentleman's sweep. And usually it's a bit of a joke. It's usually saying, look, you weren't ever going to get anywhere near it, but you won a game, and so it's 4-1. 3-1 in this situation won't feel like that. This will be a weirdly highly contested 3-1 if that's how we end up. But who knows what will happen from here? You still got Washington. He's a specialist number 8. You're fine.
Yeah. And it might be the second series that Australia failed to win the moral victory. So
wow.
That's something.
How unimpressive will that be if Australia cannot win the moral victory? That's Saurabh Somani. I'm Jarrod Kimber. This is Following On India for the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel. We'll be back for, most probably, one final show after the game tomorrow. See you then.